Edward Tomasz, a FreeBSD contributor for over 18 years, longtime contributor, has advocated for the hunting of Jews, and he used the FreeBSD Wiki to actually spread some of his rather vile ideas about Jews and Israel and really anything Jew adjacent. And the FreeBSD Core Team, the leadership council, if you will, their board of directors sort of surrogate, has responded. And their response was initially atrocious and ridiculous, but then got a whole heck of a lot better when they realized how badly they were screwing up. I'm going to walk you through everything here so that you see all of the communications and all of the stuff that we're talking about, and you can kind of make up your own mind about what exactly the FreeBSD group is doing here. So I've been kind of chronicling this as I went over on X. I'm just going to read you some of it now. On July 6th, an issue was opened on the FreeBSD project entitled Anti-Semitism and Hate Speech in Official FreeBSD Wiki. The short version of this is this. A guy named Edward Tomasz Napiarella, a longtime FreeBSD developer, again, over 18 years on the project, added the following to the official FreeBSD Wiki. I'm going to read the exact quote here. Quote, Israel is an apartheid state committing genocide, and it's everyone's moral responsibility to fight it. Beep Nazis, this includes Israel. And then I provide a link here. Now, his criticism doesn't end with Israel. It is a really key part here. In fact, Edward regularly goes on specifically anti-Jewish tirades, including social media posts encouraging people to hunt for Jews. I'm just going to read one of them to you now. Let's see. Jews in 2024 are German Nazis in 1945. Your children will have to live with this stigma, and some of you will hopefully get hunted like German Nazis did. End quote. So, he's pretty doggone delightful fella there. Now, anyone who's advocating for the hunting of a group of people, maybe not 100% sane. Now, here's the thing. According to a reply from the FreeBSD leadership, inside of that issue that was opened, quote, this is an issue that has already been brought to the attention of the FreeBSD Core Team and is under active discussion. And at that time, no other details were provided. Since then, multiple FreeBSD community members have asked for an update and for several days did not get any response. One of the FreeBSD members said, quote, it's been 4 days and you still haven't changed the wiki. Are you waiting for another Lunduke promotion, or are you having trouble deciding whether Jews are Nazis? It's a reasonable question to ask. Was FreeBSD waiting for a Lunduke promotion? Oh, my heavens. You guys know me well. So a little bit of backstory here. Many years back, the FreeBSD project decided to do something that I consider to be one of the goofiest, most ridiculous policies ever enacted within the world of open source. And there's been a lot of ridiculousness. And that was this. FreeBSD outlawed virtual hugs. This was a real thing. It was a punishable by complete and total banning from the FreeBSD project if you posted a virtual hug. Now, you're probably saying to yourself right about now, what in the hecatarnations is a virtual hug? Well, the idea was this, that if you virtually hugged someone without consent, that was literally rape. So a virtual hug is, let's say you posted the word hugs in between some asterisks in order to say, oh, I'm hugging you right now. That was considered rape by FreeBSD. They also, like an animated GIF. So, like, if there was an animated GIF going around of a teddy bear offering a hug, and it was just like a cartoon teddy bear offering a hug in an animated GIF form, someone posted that animated GIF and said, "Is this what you mean by a virtual hug?" And the FreeBSD Core Team, which is kind of their board, was like, "Yeah, that's rape." It was the craziest thing. So they put that out there. And I did an article and I think a couple of shows about it, and I was just laughing because it was hilarious. And at that time, the people who were on the FreeBSD core team went crazy. I mean, a couple of them went psychotic. They started posting jokes about killing me. Like, they went nuts. Now, in the years since, it took a couple of years, but I think they finally got rid of their virtual hug provision. So you're allowed to post animated GIFs of, I guess, cartoon bears hugging now. I guess that's allowed now. But the FreeBSD project was renowned within the open source world for several years after that because of their ban of virtual hugs. And so the FreeBSD folks are like, seriously, guys, are you waiting for another Lunduke promotion? Are you waiting for Lunduke to swoop in here and start covering this? And, you know, it's a reasonable question. I waited a few days to cover this because I was trying to give the FreeBSD project a chance to actually respond to this. And it took them quite some time. In fact, they didn't really act on any of this until I got involved. And I'm gonna show you some of that now. Now here's one of the wiki pages where Edward Tomasz was talking about this, and this is not the first one he's done. There's another as well, but it was far more vulgar. All right, let's go on to the next setup here. Immediately after I posted all of that, there was a bit of a follow-up here. So, as a follow-up to the FreeBSD longtime contributor who encourages the hunting of Jews and uses the FreeBSD website to spread his anti-Jew and anti-Israel hate, FreeBSD leadership has reluctantly suspended his ability to commit changes to the website, and leadership has had, quote, 30 private emails about the issue. FreeBSD leadership is also apparently not happy that people are concerned about the Jew hunter, saying, quote, "I have done my best to hold my temper with everyone commenting here, but I have to admit right now I am finding it hard to do so." So this is really, really kind of wild. Let me see. Can I show you this here? Yeah, here we go. So the person who said that was Mark something or other, one of the individuals representing the FreeBSD leadership there. He made it very clear that he was kind of angry. He was mad not at the guy who was saying we should go hunt Jews. He was mad at people bringing it up as a bad thing, saying we need to stop this. We need to stop this from being on our wiki. We need to just delete these sentences from our wiki. It's no big deal. Let's do this. And this representative from FreeBSD said, "I have done my best to hold my temper with everyone commenting here, but I have to admit right now I'm finding it hard to do so," which is crazy. It's Mark Lineman. Now, I don't know if Mark was just having a bad day or that's really Mark's viewpoints on things. I don't know Mark, so I can't tell you. But someone also chimed in and said, "Hey, thanks, Mark. Have his credentials at least been suspended temporarily," meaning his ability to edit the wiki pages and upload things to the server, to which the FreeBSD leadership, Mark here in this case, responded with great reluctance, "I have done so. I trust that this will satisfy absolutely no one." The fact that he did it reluctantly is a little peculiar. So now things kind of snowballed out of after that, right? Because I was posting about this over on X and linking to it and showing people screenshots, and that really just kind of kicked things off here. I'm just going to read this next update. FreeBSD leadership has now deleted, this was just a couple hours later, FreeBSD leadership has now deleted the change request to remove the attacks on Jews from the official FreeBSD wiki and close the issue regarding it. Meaning, at that point, they were just going to leave any anti-Jew, anti-Israel, and all the swear words that went along with it, and calling people Nazis, and all, they were just going to leave it all in place, and they were just closing the issue, and they were not going to resolve it. That was a decided thing. They have also threatened to block people who raise concerns about the anti-Jewish statements. At this point, you can kind of see the FreeBSD project snowballing out of control, right? They redeemed themselves a little bit in a moment. So reserve judgment until the end here. So they were snowballing out of control at this point, though. And it's worth noting, and again, I'm going to repeat this again here. FreeBSD had previously found virtual hugs so offensive that posting an animated GIF depicting a hug was a ban-worthy offense. But apparently, now, at this point, calling Jews Nazis and discussing the hunting of Jews is completely allowed. That was the reality at that moment. Okay, here's a screenshot if you're watching the video version of the particular bug in question, this little issue that was raised about this being a problem. Its status was closed, not accepted. This has become completely useless. I am taking the only action that I know of to delete this pull request. In addition, if people cannot discipline themselves to stop posting, I'm going to block them as well. This is already under consideration. So meaning they're having, at that point, 30 emails, some odd, going around among the FreeBSD core team to decide what to do about this. Okay, fair enough. So here's where things start to turn both worse and better. I'm just going to read this to you now. Earlier today, the Lunduke Journal sent an email to the FreeBSD Core Team asking if they'd like to make a comment regarding the anti-Jewish content posted to their wiki. And I'm going to read the whole thing to you now in just a second. And then the FreeBSD Core Team responded. Okay, so I want to read my email to them. So this is my email, and I'm going to read I'm showing you and reading you every single word here. Comment on anti-Jewish content on FreeBSD Wiki. Following up on the issue raised here, and then I linked to their bug tracking database with that issue, does FreeBSD plan any response to this? Any comment you'd like to make? I plan to publish a story around this in roughly 5 hours. If you would like to provide any details, clarifications, or comments, simply send them over before then. Thanks, Lunduke. Okay, so I sent that over, and that's a pretty generic standard request for comment sort of email. You say what the topic is, and you give them like some sort of deadline. You tell them what your publishing schedule and deadline is, which is why I let them know the 5 hours thing. That way they can plan around that. You know, sometimes you'll say something like, I plan to go to press on Monday morning, or I'm publishing this afternoon. I only have an hour or two. So if you want to get back to me, you really gotta move fast. It's just kind of a courtesy thing. You want to tell people how long they have. They responded, and I got to give them kudos here. They responded quickly. I want to say an hour, maybe 2 hours. It wasn't very long at all before FreeBSD responded. I'm going to read it all to you now. This is from Gleb Smirnov, a member of the FreeBSD core team. Quote, I really don't like your intimidating tone, Brian. I have removed the content, but please don't try to make any ultimatum to the project in the future. That will not work for a second time. The core is working with Edward Tomasz, and we wanted him to remove the content himself. Doing it this way takes extra time, but at the end, we would be sure that Edward Tomasz will not put the content back on Wiki or anywhere else in the project space. Now that you forced me to do the action, chances are Edward Tomasz will retaliate, and vicious circle of Wiki edits may start. We may end up kicking Edward Tomasz out of the project if discussions start to get really heated. Despite his crazy political views, he is a valuable developer. Your threatening with story publishing was not helpful. Gleb Smirnov. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh my word! And here's a screenshot. My apologies for people looking at the video. There are some naughty words on the screen that I failed to censor out. The Edward Tomasz guy is is prolifically vulgar, and I missed some. There was him adding in some additional commits to the wiki page just to add some anti-Israel and anti-Jewish stuff, and then you have the commit from Gleb there saying deleting provocative content that is not related to the FreeBSD project with my core team hat on. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna scroll up a little bit here because this was kind of crazy. This was crazy and weird. It is worth really noting, though, and I think this is rather obvious, but it's worth noting anyway. The Lunduke Journal did not pose any ultimatum to FreeBSD whatsoever. This was a standard request for comment on a story, which was going to run regardless of their providing comment. I'm just going to show this to you one more time. Does FreeBSD plan any response to this? Any comment you'd like to make? I plan to publish a story around this in roughly 5 hours. If you would like to provide any details, clarifications, or comments, simply send them over before then, Lunduke. Very, very straightforward, right? Clearly, he was worked up into almost a frenzy. And I want to read off to you a bullet list of why I found this so utterly bizarre. First, a FreeBSD contributor attacks Jews using FreeBSD resources. Okay, that started the whole story. And then FreeBSD stalls taking any action to delete or stop those attacks on Jews, right? They kind of stalled it. They spent several days trying to make it not happen and make it go away. In fact, FreeBSD threatened to ban anyone who talked about the attacks on Jews, and then they closed an issue opened regarding it with people who were concerned about it, other FreeBSD members and contributors who were like, this isn't good, we need to just delete these wiki entries real quick, no big deal. But FreeBSD wasn't having that. They stalled it, threatened to block anyone who complained about it, and then eventually just closed out the bug report entirely. And then when they responded to the press, FreeBSD blamed a Jewish tech journalist for, quote, forcing them to address the issue by covering the story. And then FreeBSD preemptively blamed the Jewish tech journalist for any trouble which their anti-Jewish contributor might cause. I mean, did you catch that? That was absolutely crazy to me. Now that you forced me to do this action, he said, chances are Edward Tomasz will retaliate and a vicious circle of wiki edits may start. We may end up kicking Edward Tomasz out of the project if discussions start to get really heated. Despite his crazy political views, he's a value developer. Crazy. So they know he's nuts. They know he's violently nuts. They know they've got that, but if he decides, so if their contributor decides to go around trying to encourage people to hunt down Jews, if a naughty Jew says, excuse me, that's kind of weird, maybe let's not do that. Now it's the Jew's fault that this crazy psycho is encouraging people to hunt Jews. Sorry, Gleb Smirnov, not a chance. In fact, if this is where the story ended, this video would be an incredibly anti-FreeBSD video because this response from FreeBSD really sucked. There wasn't anything good about it up to this point. Up to this point, it basically just seems like FreeBSD is up to their old tricks, only they're getting worse. And it's just absolutely insane. So I posted all of that over on X. And I followed up with the core team. And I'm like, well, if you want to, I told them, hey, just to be clear, This is really what I told him. I don't have a screenshot of it here. My apologies. Just to be clear, yeah, there was no ultimatum given. I just wanted I want you to have an opportunity to comment on the story prior to publication. If you think of anything else, feel free to let me know. Well, that's basically what I said, paraphrasing. They responded. After I posted everything on X, I got a second email from the FreeBSD Core Team. And this second email, and this is the last any sort of communication I've had with them so far, was entirely different in tone and approach and was incredibly reasonable. If they had started with this, they would be in a much better place right now. I'm going to read this all to you in entirety. This one came from Dave Kottlehuber. Kottlehuber? Yeah, I think I'm saying that right. Who is also a member of the FreeBSD Core Team, their leadership. I'm just going to read this to you in full right now because, and I want to be clear about this, this was a good email. Whoever Dave Kottlehuber is, FreeBSD, let him do your talking in the future because the other people you had talking sounded like psychos. Dave Kottlehuber sounded reasonable. I'm just going to read this here. Quote, "Thanks, Brian, for reaching out to us for comment. Earlier this year, the FreeBSD Core Team removed offensive content from Edward Tomasz's wiki page. Unfortunately, he later reinstated it. We've now removed it again and made efforts to ensure that he is unable to put it back. Members of the core team have been in ongoing discussions with him to help him understand the seriousness of the situation and the harm caused by his statements. His statements do not represent the views of the project. We've been working to encourage him to take personal responsibility and remove the content himself, but progress has been slow. Like many open source projects, we operate as a global, volunteer-driven team, and coordinating across time zones, especially during the summer holiday season, can be challenging. Nonetheless, this matter is being actively addressed." Dave Kottlehuber. That was a very good response. It wasn't 100% perfect, but I'm going to tell you what, it was darn close. Very nicely put. It showed multiple things. It showed that they had been behind the scenes, at least someone proactively considering this a problem and trying to address it. They were taking it seriously, and that whatever I or you think of their approach to it, they were at least attempting to address the issue that they took seriously. That was fantastic. Now, the question I have is why on God's green earth could they not just say that from the start? I mean, holy heavens. The previous email was basically like, it was the equivalent of, oh, you're a Jew that's complaining. Well, then it's your fault if we have problems because you're the Jew that's complaining. I mean, it's basically how it read to me. But no, Edward Kottlehuber came in and gave a reasonable response. Now, how I read all of this is a bit chaotic, right? Because we see multiple people who are in leadership at the FreeBSD project who clearly do not want to censor or silence or moderate in any way someone who is anti-Jewish. That's obvious. Obvious. However, significant representatives from the core team, from the FreeBSD leadership, are also taking it very seriously and working to make it not a problem going forward, right? So it does seem like there's multiple factions, at least two, pushing in different ways within FreeBSD. I don't have a whole lot of insight. Supposedly there was 30 at some point plus emails going in privately within the core team at FreeBSD about this. Obviously, I don't have any of those. If anyone wants to send them to me, I wouldn't object. But I don't have any of those at this point. And so all I can tell you is what I read into this based on all of this information and what I've heard from some FreeBSD members. So what I'm going to leave it with is this. I'm going to keep an eye on this because there is a rather extreme problem with Jew hate, with people who just hate Jews within the open source world. And that includes FreeBSD and many other projects. It's an ongoing problem. As a general rule of thumb, it's just an issue. And those people seem to all have one very particular political alignment within the open source world, right? It's a thing that's happening. That's not 100% true. That's a bigger topic. Scratch all that. It's a bigger topic. We'll have to get into it a little bit later. There's a whole lot to go through. But I'm going to keep tabs on it and see where FreeBSD goes with this. In the past, FreeBSD has been notoriously slow to correct weird things that they do, like the FreeBSD virtual hug ban. Took them, I think, a couple years to finally decide maybe we don't need to make virtual animated GIFs of hugs an offense punishable by death. Maybe we don't have to do that. So it'll be interesting to see how long it takes FreeBSD decide that they don't need to have people around who are pushing things like hunting Jews. Literally hunting Jews. It's crazy. I want to say thanks to all of the Lunduke Journal subscribers for allowing me to do this sort of coverage. There's a whole lot of things happening within the world of free software, open source, big tech, all of it that just needs coverage. Because these sorts of stories, they're not inherently technical. Right? Dealing with some crazy anti-Jewish guy over in the FreeBSD project, not inherently technical, but the impact that it has on open source, on FreeBSD specifically, and the broader world of computing and free software and the like, it is significant. And we have so many of these, and there are issues where we have, political bannings and crazy, racist hiring programs and all these other things that just need to be covered because they affect the people who work on the projects, who's allowed to work on the projects, who can get hired by the companies, how people feel about the computers and software that they use. There's just so many things that impact all of it, and it needs to be covered. So I really do appreciate all of the subscribers that have allowed me to do that. Because of all of you subscribing, it means that I don't have to get advertising revenue from IBM and Red Hat and Microsoft and the like, because they would assuredly, after seeing this episode and so many others, they would pull their advertising revenue. They would yank it right away. No more sponsors for me. So all of you make this possible, and I really appreciate it. Go to lunduke.com and click on links. Subscribe however you want to subscribe. Support however you want to support. You're amazing. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.